Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Hammer D20, the show that breaks the mold with doing the exact same kind of intro where I have some kind of self-deprecating joke that relates to the topic at hand, and I'm a doofus, and anyway, my name is Steven Sobot, and I will be your guide. Today we're going to go back on a topic that I covered slightly in last season, and this would be choose your own adventure novels. In a previous episode, I had a guest, Jeff Fowler, who was a video editor and filmmaker, who was notable for designing Batman and superhero masks in his spare time. He mentioned to me that he was doing the illustrations on a choose your own adventure novel that would be done sometime in the summer. And when did you know, summer comes around and he sends me a message and says, "Hey Steven, the book's done." And I thought, oh, okay, that would be a juicy little segment to do for Hammer D20. The novel is called DungeonJest, The Ruby of Power, written by Andrew Snook, illustrated by Jeff Fowler, and inked by Corey King. In the land of Opulentos, there are many snorts and giggles to be had. It had been a realm of laughter and good tidings for many years. King and Queen Opulentos are always in good spirits, and those feelings are passed down throughout the entire kingdom. One could argue that it has been the happiest kingdom for many years. And what is the cause of these tidings of joy? Why, you, of course. Yes, in this novel, unlike the usual choose-your-own-adventure novel idea where you play a warrior or a knight or a wizard or, something along those lines, you are playing a court jester, Stalty, a dumpy, wiry little man who gets around with his wits, charm, and sense of laughter. In addition to being a parody of high fantasy stories such as Lord of the Rings, DungeonJest gives you an inventory of items that you can use throughout the quest that you pick up on the dungeon, as well as dice rolls for decision making and to help further solidify the randomness of this fool's errand. Now, as much as I'd love to get straight into the book to give you a taste as to what you can expect from it, I spoke to its creators, Andrew Snook and Jeff Fowler, about what the book's all about, how they came to create it, and what they took as inspiration. Steven, over to you. Thank you, Steven. So while I can explain what it's all about, why don't you guys? What is DungeonJest?
So DungeonJest is a decide your fate, dice rolling, monster battling book for adults. So it's kind of that same feel as the old books, the old kind of choose your fate type books, but it's kind of almost like a simplified D&D kind of combat to it. I grew up reading like fighting fantasy and books like that. Those are like the first like full length kind of books I ever read. And so I loved them, and I always wanted to write one even as a kid. I decided to put one together just for fun, but for the generation that grew up with that.
Right, and the theming itself is that it's like is an adult like base.
It's definitely not for kids.
yeah.
It's not for well-adjusted kids. Let's just put it that way, or for responsible parents to give their kids.
Yes, yeah, no, exactly right. So how did the project kind of come to be? How did you kind of start working on it?
So back in 2020, I was sitting at home, in my little bubble during the pandemic with 3 little kids running around. And I love writing fiction, but I knew I normally write kind of like traditional style novels, but I knew I couldn't sit down and be able to do that with little kids running around. And at the same time, my youngest son, Sebastian, he was 2. And as all of my toddlers did, he would wake up at 3 a.m. and party till 7 a.m. and pass out on the couch. So I would start waking up with him at 3 a.m., bring him downstairs, give him his Eggo waffles, let him watch his cartoons, and hang out with him until he passed out. And then I thought, this is kind of like I have all these hours, these perfect times, since I'm going to be awake anyways. I might as well start working on something. And I thought, this style of book, you only need to write like a paragraph at a time. So it's kind of more doable in that sense, even though your thought process gets broken up, it's not so disruptive. So I brought a notepad and pencils down, and I sat on the couch with him, and I sat there, and over 8 months from 3 to 7 a.m., I sketched it out by hand.
And then I guess, how did you get, how did Jeff get involved?
So I was chatting with Jeff because we're friends.
Oh, okay.
And I liked his artwork a lot. I liked the style of his artwork. And so I think I just sent him a random note at one point and was like, hey man, I'm working on this book. Are you interested in would you be interested in doing all the illustrations for it?
But like getting it started, how did you kind of like get it from kind of the paper to a publisher?
So I'm independently published. So I've put together 4 books. This was my third. So I spent a lot of years kind of fumbling through the publishing process. And over time, I was able to meet editors that I was very comfortable with, that I liked working with. And, I wanted someone like Jeff, who's a great illustrator, to be able to put, turn my words into awesome, cool pictures. And over time, I've just been able to find people, and even the process of putting the book together itself, that's a long process too. So I went around looking around, researching different companies I could work with that could do the format and design work. And I ended up, one of the things that was really important to me was that I make my living in the publishing sector on the nonfiction side. And I really wanted to support Canada's publishing sector. So I wanted to find a publisher who does the work in Canada and prints the books in Canada. And so that wasn't that easy to find. But I found Friesen Press, who are a smaller company of Friesen's Corporation, which is based in Manitoba. They do most of the book printing in Canada for large published books. But Friesen Press was their smaller independent company, and they're based in Victoria, BC. And I worked with them with 2 other books I had done, and I really loved the print quality that they had done, and all the prints were being done at their plant in Altona, Manitoba. And so I was very comfortable working with them. So, and they make beautiful books. So I really wanted to work with them and support Canada's sector. So that's kind of how I ended up with the people I work with in that sense.
What would you say is you took as inspiration from this? Obviously the main one is kind of the choose your own adventure style stories. They're kind of come from classic fantasy. Is there anything else that you kind of would say is that you took as that?
So, well, I love the monster battling components. I'm a big gamer nerd. I love fantasy style gaming, where the Elder Scrolls, things like that. Might and Magic from this is really gonna age me, but the original Might and Magic games, Heroes, all that kind of stuff. I always loved it. So in that sense, I love that kind of era where you're battling those kind of fantasy creatures. And jesters are just funny. I like jesters. They're fun, right? So I thought making the main character a little different, because Stulti, the jester, the court jester of Opulentus, who's tasked with this quest, he's not a fighter. Normally, you have people who have real combat skill, and he doesn't get that to start the game. He's a jester, so he has to use his wit, right? So I thought that would be a fun kind of different way to create this style of game book.
Gotcha. And Jeff, in terms of the illustrations, what would you kind of take as your inspiration?
It's hard to really say. I grew up sort of with the same stuff. I remember going to the bookmobile, getting choose your own adventures and that kind of thing. And I was in I guess we played Dungeons and Dragons quite often in grade school, and then into high school as well, a bunch of different games too, like Shadowrun and all those types of games, and Vampire and all those types of games. So I guess I just kind of osmosisly kind of absorb the different styles that I like, and to some degree, I wish, like any artist, you kind of wish that were able to sort of transpose your style into whatever else. But I always fall into I don't particularly think I have a specific style, but people seem to think I do. I guess they know better than I do, but I just kind of always see the things that are incorrect, as any artist does. But I guess it's sort of a mix of I was really influenced by 80s and 90s American comics, North American comics, as well as sort of manga, not sort of manga, but anime was sort of starting to come into the mainstream as I was in high school. So there's a certain element of simplicity to the anime stuff where the sort of logic behind how they operate from a visual standpoint, just being you make the characters line work relatively simple and the background's complex, which allows the characters kind of pop off the background a little bit. So you'll notice when you're watching, like, especially early anime, like even like later stuff like Akira, the characters are very simplistic to the most degrees, but their backgrounds are very photorealistic, and it just, you get that sort of like really juxtaposition. The hard part for me on this book was I'd never really done stuff finishing wise in strict black and white. So that was like a sort of new process for me to sort of like not having color other than the covers was kind of like interesting, in how to play with certain gray tones and half tones and those kinds of things to sort of like get the sort of look I was kind of going for, which was sort of like a mix of like early D&D, Warhammer kind of stuff, but also a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more cartoony in a way, a little bit more playful. But it's not so serious, right? So it allowed me to do like there's little things like the dwarf who's forging on the anvil. I gave him like a massive armpit hair, right? And it's like little things like that kind of make it fun for me, where I'll just throw in like little things where, you know, the Minotaur has like a nipple rings, and, you know, it's just little things that I like to sort of like, oh, okay, you know, if anybody notices that, great. Especially the treasure room scene where I kind of knocked off every sort of iconic trophy or weapon or, you know, 80s cartoon referenced like character thing without getting sued. Kind of just threw that in there to sort of like just little sort of Easter eggs for anybody who's actually paying attention.
What were your favorite parts of the book? I'm assuming you all went through it. Yeah.
Pretty much all the fiction I write has humor in it. And I feel like it's always a good sign when I'm laughing at my own writing like a total dork. So so there were like a few scenes where I was just like, I'm just sitting there snickering as I'm tapping on the keyboard. I love the treasure chomper. I don't know if you got to experience that or not. There's a lot of scenes that just kind of made me laugh.
It's just the little things, like, you know, for me, it's like, you know, when you first start the sort of adventure, you're on the road and then you come to the thing and you're like, do you want to like slap this guy on the ass? It's like, yeah, totally, because that's something I would do, right? So it's those little things where it's just the moments where, you know, I kind of relate to the options that are available, right? And there's always the, oh, what's going to get me further? But then it's like, but if I do this is a little bit more interesting.
Before we kind of close off, what plans do you have for the future? Do you another book in the idea or something else?
I do have thoughts for another book. I've actually started writing it. And it can be used as a standalone, or because it starts off with, you know, Stulty in a compromising position again. But it also, for the people who read the first one, he starts off in a compromising position after the end of the first book. I don't want to like spoil it, but I'm like really excited about some new components I've added that I think are going to be super ridiculous and super fun for Jeff to draw. He's gonna come back to me and ask me what's wrong with me with some of them, just like in the first book.
I mean, it's more just how complex is the background for me. It's just like, how much perspective work do I have to do?
All right. So thank you for your time, fellas. I'll wish you all the best. But I'll just close off and just throw it back to you, Stephen. Oh, well, thank you, fellas, and thank you, Stephen. Before we move on to our next segment, we'll take a short break. See you soon. Welcome back. So we spoke about DungeonJest. We spoke to the creators of DungeonJest. The only thing to do now is to smell DungeonJest. Just joking. We're going to play through a round of it to give you a taste to see what you can come to expect from this raunchy adventure through the deadly dungeons of Opulentos. Dungeons? Where's the dungeon? All right, so change of scenery in a different part of the dungeon, and let's get into the book. First, I'll need a pencil, 2 dice, and mad rolling skills. See, that's why I get loaded dice, baby. While searching for the Ruby of Power, you will encounter a wide variety of creatures. Some will be friendly, but many will want your head. As a professional fool, your combat training has been limited to the odd drunken brawl at the local pub where you are typically pummeled. So basically a Toronto Argonauts fan. Use the power of laughter to charm angry beasts and avoid unnecessary encounters. To obtain your laughter score, to begin the quest, we'll roll 1 die and add 1 to the total to a maximum of 5. Let's get the roll going. Ooh, off camera, but I got myself a 6. Sometimes skill, health, and laughter won't be enough to persevere. Sometimes you'll simply need a little luck. To obtain your luck score to begin the quest, roll 1 die to the total of a maximum score of 5. Alright, well, loaded dice, here we come. When you begin your quest, your health, you must roll for the total health points. Roll 1 die and add 15. This is your total health. Oops. Alright, well, my luck ran out. So I did the health last, and I rolled a 1 on that. So let's give this a 16. You, Stultus Insanus Rusticus, or Stulty as you are known throughout the kingdom, have lived your life with one purpose, to entertain the royal family. The happiness you have brought to the kingdom has made you the most popular fool in the realm. That is until now. Okay, we're at number 1. After yet another successful performance for King and Queen Opulentos, you fumble your way out of the Great Hall towards your quarters when they stop by Lady Penelope, lady-in-waiting to Princess Norita. Noble fool, the princess... Should I do a voice for this? It's a woman. I'm not particularly good at that. Okay, let's do a voice for this. Noble fool, the princess demands your presence in her chambers for some private entertainment. You must make your way there. Post haste, Lady Penelope says. If you respond, of course, my lady, I shall head there with great haste to bring much-needed joy to my honorable princess. Or, kiss my pantaloons, you snaggle-toothed buzzard. 'Tis time for mutton, ale, and the ogling of fine wenches. I shall not be denied my most carnal desires. Turn to 75. I mean, I am a jester. Just being a doofus, why wouldn't I do that? Uh-oh. Lady Penelope did not respond well to your rejection. Uh-oh. Shortly after your brief encounter, you met by members of the King's Royal Guard, who grab you by the arms and drag you back into the Great Hall. Turn to 200. Oh, pissed off wizard, pissed off king, queen. She doesn't look that happy either. King and Queen Opulentos enter the Great Hall, alongside Dolus Malus, the court wizard who is always considered a pompous ass and all-around bad guy. As you stand, you notice Dolus Malus grinning and rubbing his hands together, practically brimming over with anticipation of something to come. Your unwillingness to comply with the prince's request has greatly offended your queen and king. We have decided to offer you an opportunity for absolution. You nod, praying forgiveness will come in the form of anything other than a suicidal run through the labyrinth of the Minotaur, one of the king's favorite ways to dispatch subjects he dislikes. Instead of heading to the castle dungeon, you shall make your way to the labyrinth of the Minotaur. You curse under your breath as you listen to the people in the court snicker and whisper to each other about your impending doom. Dolus Malus steps forward, holding 3 small sacks. Noble fool, your quest will be a perilous one, Malus says. You will need to be well equipped if you are to survive your journey and bring back the fabled Ruby of Power. I have enchanted these sacks and filled them each with items that can assist you on your quest. You may choose only one for your adventure, so choose wisely. You're sure he's totally screwed with you. Revenge for slipping a spike onto his seat during last year's royal banquet. Malus had to wear a pillow for a month, and you're certain he hadn't forgotten about it. Which one do you choose? If you choose the blue sack, turn to 158. If you decide on the purple sack, turn to 221. If you choose the green sack, turn to 240. Okay, blue. Blue sounds trustworthy. Purple, that's a royal color. And green. I want to touch green. Green's probably got poison in it. Let's do purple. As you slide your hand, you feel a sharp stabbing pain and drop the bag. Lose 1 health. The court erupts and, let's lose the health. This is gonna be a little tricky. I'm at 15. Oh, eraser. Why am I scratching it out? While cursing in your breath, you carefully pick out the bottom of the sack and spill its contents on the floor. You retrieve a rusty dagger, a lantern, and a piece of moldy cheese. Rusty dagger, lantern, moldy cheese. Okay, I got my items. We're now moving on to the next part, 260. You collect your quest items and thank Dolus Malus for his assistance, secretly hoping that one day you'll be able to return the favor to that puffed up spellcaster. You are given a horse and begin your trip to the labyrinth of the Minotaur, escorted by 2 soldiers from the royal guard. A few hours into the ride, the guard stops you so the dwarf can relieve himself by the tree. What will you do? If you try to ride away and escape, turn to 12. Attempt to sneak up on the dwarf and slap his buttocks while he relieves himself, turn to 291. If you attack the royal guardsmen armed with a bow and arrow, turn to 60. If you wait for the dwarf to finish and continue on to the labyrinth of the Minotaur, turn to 140. Alright, I mean, I am a fool, but I got in trouble for being a doofus, so I don't learn my own mistakes. Let's go to 291. Slap the dwarf on his buttocks. Well, you place your pointer finger on your mouth, signaling the archer to be silent as you sneak up behind the dwarf and slap him on his bare bottom. The startled dwarf stumbles accidentally. The dwarf curses you and threatens to cleave you in two with his axe, so you quickly get back on your horse. The archer, impressed with your antics, hands you a silver dagger to aid you on your quest. He says it will be especially useful in any encounters involving the undead. The dwarf continues to curse at you as he mounts his steed and you continue your quest. Turn to 140. Silver dagger, huh? Silver dagger? As you and the armed chaperones approach the entrance of the labyrinth, you're met by a small band of goblins. Hand over your horses, weapons, and gold, or Sorry, I have to do a goblin voice. Hand over your horse, weapons, and gold, or meet your demise, one of the goblins screams as he approaches you brandishing a wooden club. The royal guardsmen laugh at the small creature's bravado. If you charge in and join the battle, turn to 30. You choose to leave the guards, fend for themselves, and head for the entrance to the labyrinth, turn to 217. If you get between both parties and attempt to calm the situation using laughter, turn to 163. That's an obvious choice. It's like being a firefighter and they seeing a fire and being like, oh, I got nothing I can do. That doesn't make sense because if you don't have the truck and... You know what I mean. You dismount from your horse and run up between the two parties. Hold! Why fight when we can dance? You say as you reach into your sack and pull out your trusty marotte. You shake it while you dance and roll around on the ground. The guards and goblins stop in their tracks and offer puzzled looks at each other. Perform a laughter roll. Okay. 4 plus 9. I've succeeded. Turn to 207. Oops. The goblin bursts into hysterical laughter at your silly dance. They join you in your antics and swing their clubs wildly in the air, shrieking with joy. The garden stares completely bewildered by your actions. At the end of the dance, the goblins jump and cheer. As you mount your horse, one of the goblins runs over and holds you a moldy onion as payment for your entertainment. Turn to 245. Moldy onion. We got moldy cheese. We got a moldy onion. It looks like we're just making ourselves a disgusting soup. Ugh. 245. Alright. A moss-covered cavern comes into view as you make way to the entrance of the labyrinth. You dismount your horse and walk towards the entrance. All you know about this place is that there's a set of interconnected caves that many adventurers and scholars have lost their lives exploring. You take a deep breath, light your lantern, and step into the dark entrance. Turn to 34, sorry. The light from the sun quickly disappears as you make your way into the dark and damp cavern. A few minutes into exploring, you encountered a skeleton of an unlucky adventurer, sitting with its back against the cavern wall. The skeleton is holding a rusty key in its bony fist. If you try to remove the key from its grasp, turn to 123. If you try to remove the skeleton's head and use as a puppet, turn to 247. If you leave the key and continue on your journey, turn to 281. I mean, come on, it's an obvious choice. Play me for a fool? Let's take the skeleton's head, 247. You grab the skull of the deceased, pop the head off, and slip your hand inside so you can manipulate its bony jaw. Hello, Mr. Bones. 'Tis a fine day, is it not? You say to the skull. Why, yes, it is, noble and great jester of the royal court. You make the skull, replying, moving its mouth open and closed. As you begin to make the skull speak again, the skeleton's bony hands open up and offer you the key. You place the skull back onto the body of the skeleton, pick up the rusty key, and add it to my inventory. Might thank you, Mr. Bones. May you rest peacefully for all eternity. And you say, as you continue further into the labyrinth, turn to 281. Rusty key. Let's go add that. A fork appears in the cavern, offering 2 paths. On the left, you believe you hear faint movements. On the right, there's nothing but silence. If you choose to go left, turn to 241. If you choose to go right, go to 186. Ooh. Choose left or you choose right? Okay. Let's choose right. I don't hear anything. There's probably monsters or something like that on the other side. And I want to avoid that for obvious reasons. The rocky corridor stops at the old wooden door. It is locked. You can hear something on the other side. If you have the rusty key and would like to try the door, turn to 230. I have the rusty key. 230. This looks good. The rusty key fits perfectly into the door. You slowly open the door and peek inside. You see a harpy asleep in its nest. Next to the nest is a wooden chest. If you choose to close the door and go back, try the other path to go to 241. Decide to attack the sleeping harpy, turn to 137. If you attempt to sneak into the harpy's lair and open the wooden chest, go to 206. Let's sneak. You little sneaky sneak. Make a luck roll. If you succeed, turn to 177. If you fail, turn to 3. Oops, sorry. Oh, that's pretty good. It's combined. It's 10. I'd say that's a success. You successfully sneak by the harpy and open the wooden chest. Turn to 73. You find a small sapphire, elixir of health, and a vial of green liquid. You notice a trap door leading further into the labyrinth. Cautiously, you slowly open the door and climb down further into darkness. Turn to 9. Uh-oh. While climbing down through the trap door, you feel icy cold air filling your chest, causing your lungs to burn slightly. You realize the walls of the cave are simply covered in ice. As you carefully walk down the frozen corridor, is the body of fellow adventurers encased in icy tombs. You halt your progress entirely when you encounter a massive block of ice blocking your path. Inside the ice stands a large figure that is difficult to make out. You notice a deep crack running through the center of the ice block. If you attempt to break the ice and free the creature, go to 144. If you ignore the frozen creature and continue down the tunnel, go to 208. Yeah, I mean, why would you give me the option to avoid the creature? I mean, it's an adventure after all. May as well. 144. Let's keep the ball rolling. I mean, we've slapped people. We've made the puppet. The skeleton's been good. We snuck. I guess we could have fought the harpy. It's good that we did the sneaking. Got ourselves our stuff. You rummage through your items to find something to break the ice with. If you pull out the iron spike and wooden club, turn to 94. If you pull out the rusty dagger, turn to 162. Built a vial of green liquid, turn to 276. Yes, yes, yes. Vial of green liquid, I don't trust that. 276. It's probably corrosive. It's probably bad. It's probably time to drink it at some point. You open up the vial of green liquid and recoil from the acidic, rancid aroma. Carefully, you pour the liquid into a crack of the ice. Remove it from your inventory. Let's get out of that. The liquid eats through the ice and makes its way to the creature inside. The ice block cracks in multiple places, then explodes, sends icy projectiles in every direction. Make a luck roll. Uh-oh. 1. 43. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Oh, 2. Let's go to 43. Here it is. Here it comes. Let's see what happens. A large shard of ice flies into your chest and impales you against an icy wall of the cavern. You begin to lose consciousness as you let your blood pour out and the icy floor, forming a steaming red puddle. Your quest is ended. You know what? I'm an honest man. I'm a good man, and I'm not going to cheat this one out. Also, additionally, it looks like I'm running out of time. So, thank you for coming on an adventure to read through DungeonJest. Obviously, I only got through one of the quicker paths of death. But I'm certain you will have a ton of fun reading through this thing, reading the characters, reading the dialogue, especially read it with somebody else, and ask them to make decisions. Ooh, that's a way to do it. Ooh, doing it alone, well, that's kind of fun. But with somebody else, I think you'll really enjoy it. If you're interested in getting yourself a copy of this, the best way to do it is you can go on to snookbooks.com, which is Andrew Snook's own website for his own books. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope you have a good night. See you soon.